coming into this movie, we see that, at least from IMDb, you hadn't worked on the previous two. So the first question again, were you a fan of the two beforehand coming into this one?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to make movies and be a filmmaker from when I'm like 2 years old. Truly. And I was like a kid, maybe like you guys, of like, I only watched movies and I loved movies. And I grew up in an apartment in Queens next to a video store. And I made it my goal of all of junior high school and high school to watch every movie in the store, like in a row. And sometimes they would rearrange the categories in the racks and it would throw my entire process out of whack. So I watched everything. And I think the first Harold and Kumar probably came out when I was in high school or just in college. And I loved it. You know, it was subversive, and I'm from the East Coast. White Castle is, you know, we used to eat there all the time, and it takes place in Jersey. My parents were in Jersey when I was in college. And yeah, so I loved the first one. I loved the All in a Night, and I loved how screwball and raunchy and absurd and insane. It felt like it was like Stoner Monty Python or something. So yeah, I really adored particularly the first one.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and so, you know, I was sort of I went to college for film, and then I graduated and went to Los Angeles trying to figure out how do you make a movie? Like, what do you do? Like, do I have to write one and then get someone to pay for it? Well, let's learn how to write a movie. So I was doing that. Well, how to make money? I was also making little short films, commercials, and music videos, anything that I could make. I was little comedy videos with friends. And after like maybe 9 years of being broke and frustrated and you know, just it's hard to hold on to this dream, and you're really feeling not a lot of success or momentum. Finally, I made one little short film that became quite popular online, and suddenly all these agents were calling me. I had tried for almost a decade to get anybody to pay attention to me. Every time I made anything, I would make a DVD and mail it to everybody, or put it online and send out a link to any email address I could find, and no one was interested. And then I made this one short that became successful, viral. I got an agent, and the agent started sending me out to meet Hollywood producers and studio execs. I was 28, and maybe a year after, and they would send you scripts. You know, you read scripts and you say, yeah, that sounds good. I'll take the meeting and I'll try to get that job. And over the course of the year, I did that once or twice, maybe 3 times, and I did not get the job, but I was learning. And finally, Harold and Kumar, the Christmas script came to me, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I love those people. This is going to be a 3D Christmas extravaganza that's so subversive. I'm Jewish, that's good. And it's a big, big budget, like kind of expensive movie, and we're going to really shoot it in 3D. And Neil Patrick Harris, I got to get this movie. I thought I could do something really cool with it. And I went in and I made like a sizzle reel, and I had a big pitch. That reel is online. You could see it on my Vimeo page. I can send it to you. And I got the job. And it was New Line. Those guys gave me my first job. They took a big risk. And and I was, I think, 28 or 29, which is fucking crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we were going to say, how did you go on to be the director of that? So that's crazy to kind of you get that script fall to you, and then it works out wonderfully. I'm wondering, with a film where you already have the 2 films in place, what's it like for you as a director? Do you try and put your own stamp on it, or is the goal to kind of keep it as authentic to the first 2 and know that you're doing a great job with that?
I wanted to put my own stamp on it. Like, one of the reasons why I thought it would be a cool movie to make, and it's a weird movie to make first because, like, it's not like, Hard 8 or slacker, you know? It's Harold and Kumar 3, like it's a different thing. So I really wanted to try to put as much of myself, my visual sense, a sense of humor into it. And what was really cool about the Harold and Kumar movies is that, you know, there wasn't a tremendous amount of filmmaking in the first or second one. You know, in the first one, there's an amazing tone and idea, and the jokes are great, and it's just such a wild roller coaster. But there's not like a huge amount of, you know, visual panache or, you know.
Yeah.
But I always thought those movies were like Hope and Crosby Road movies or something. You know, they're going from genre to genre or from set piece to set piece. And I thought, well, that's just so cool. And I read the script and I was like, well, look, you know, there's a claymation sequence and it's a big Christmas movie. You could do Christmas. There's also a musical number and there's Russian gangsters and, you know, there's car crashes and, you know, there's a lot of different movies in this one movie. And I thought it would be really cool to sort of approach each set piece, you know, or each world, you know, and get a chance to make like 6 different movies in one movie to sort of, you know, put a lot of myself into it like that. And that it was 3D and Christmas, I was thinking a lot about like William Castle movies. You know that? William Castle was like the low rent Hitchcock in the 60s. He made movies like The Tickler. It was very gimmicky and he was a real showman like Barnum and Bailey. But his movies were not like, they were not subtle. He was a showman. It was like throw everything at the audience and get the audience involved and really trying to, you know, throw every trick in the movie as possible. I thought, again, for a first-time filmmaker, there was a lot of room to kind of be muscular, throw a million ideas in there, and make a lot of movies in one movie.
Nice. With John Cho and Cal Penn, with you going in there, were they just immediately on board with kind of every idea you put out there because they haven't worked with you before, they've got the franchise there that they've been on a bit longer, or is it just click immediately and you go on to make the great movie that you do?
No. Well, they were involved with the movie, obviously, and so was Neil. So the 3 of them were involved. And then John and Hayden, who had written the first one, invented it, you know, written the first one, written and directed the second one, and then wrote the third one, even though, you know, the reason why I got the movie is because they wrote the third one and they were going to direct the third one, but they went off to go make an American Pie movie, American Pie Reunion. So they went off to do that. And so there was suddenly this whole movie that was ready to go. There was a start date and the returning cast, their deals were done, and there was a script. It wasn't, you know, perfect or finished, but there was a concept and the studio had money. They were ready to go. They just needed a director. So I basically walked into a project that was about 5 months away from getting shot. It was like being strapped to a rocket. And so I immediately got in there and started to work on the script with friends and add a lot of those 3D ideas and just add myself into, you know, what they had already created. And then I think that Cal and John were excited to come back to do the movie. I think that there was a little bit of hazing on me, you know. They took turns hazing me, I think. So sometimes Cal would be tough on me and John would be the nice guy, and sometimes John would be tough on me and Cal would be the nice guy. But I think that over time, and I was very young, but I think over time I earned their trust at least enough to see that I was trying to do something elevated and different than the last one. And once they got a sense of that, they got excited. They were like, "Oh, cool! This isn't going to be like this is going to be something new." And I think they also really loved the idea for this movie, which is that like they're not friends, they're bickering a lot of the time, they're older, they're different. I think just that, which John and Hayden, you know, invented that idea of, you know, where these guys would be now. I think they loved playing those scenes, you know, being a little bit ornery with each other. That was fun.
Do you think that helped? You said about getting like numerous films into one film. Do you think that time difference that you've had there with that little bit older, do you think that helped with that as well?
How do you mean? With them being older?
Yeah, because obviously in the second film, it obviously leads straight on from the first, so there isn't any time elapsed. But in this one, as you said, they're that little bit older and they've drifted apart. you think that gave you a little bit more scope to try out different things?
Maybe. I think the many different movies in one movie has to do with just the episodic structure of these kinds of movies. All in a night, we're going to go to 7 different places. And in the first one, there's the drugs and the hillbilly. They still kind of do it, But I thought that I could, instead of having it be like one tone or one look or, I always love when shots or the camera or the filmmaker gets a laugh as well as the funny lines, I was always trying to do stuff like that in this movie. I thought there were other opportunities where I could get laughs. And so things like, and all the 3D jokes were like that, getting a shotty in the face, and there's a good thing in the car chase, where debris hits the lens and the actual camera lens shatters, which is a very meta fourth wall joke.
Yeah.
But to me, that stuff is very clever, and you can't do that stuff in a lot of movies. But in a movie this crazy, a stoner movie, like I like smoking weed, like in a stone, I was like, but here, not only can you do it, people are gonna love if you do a lot of that stuff. So be outrageous. So it felt very free. That's what I kind of mean. Yeah.
From a sense of actually filming it, how much more difficult is it to film in 3D? Because as far as we're aware, we just see a picture of you filming it with a camera. Is it a lot more complicated?
Yeah, it was harder. But even before that challenge, I had been making movies since I was in high school, and I'd even been making, very little bits of money making little things, having graduated university and being in California. But I had never made anything longer than 15 minutes before. I was doing so much of it alone with the camera with friends, or very small, and music videos and things like that. So shooting something in 3D was hard, but I'd never shot anything that was longer than 15 minutes. The stamina of it, the crew was 200 people. It took 40 something days. There were lots of challenges. I felt pretty confident about my ideas and jokes and images. I felt good about that stuff. But yeah, there were blind spots, and it was challenging. The 3D stuff was particularly challenging because it was there's 2 cameras, not one. It's kind of a whole rig, and these were massive and heavy things. And so for me, and you can see it in my other movies, particularly Final Girls, and some of my shorts, but I love moving the camera, and I love doing that. I love to move the camera, be really athletic with it. This made it really hard to do it, and so the cameraman and I were always having conflict, because I would want to we're gonna push it there and do a joke with it and push in here and flip it around. And he would just say no. And I didn't know how to handle that. And maybe sometimes he was right, and sometimes he was just being a dick to a first-time filmmaker. But that was probably the hardest part of the 3D, was how limited I was in terms of what I could actually do with the camera. So when you watch Harold and Kumar, I think you'll see a filmmaker with a million ideas. But the movie itself is weirdly static, but the ideas are kind of bleeding out of the edges of the film, all the visual effects 3D stuff, or the music ideas. There's a million ideas in that movie, but weirdly the camera is not moving so much. It feels kind of classical, which maybe in the end is kind of clever, because I wanted it to feel like it was a warm-hearted Christmas movie, but filled with all of this obscene, godless, subversive stuff. But that the movie itself, the trick of it would be at the end, you would feel actually warm and emotional, and it would have that Christmas spirit, really. And that would be even more subversive, that it could make you be there could be naked nuns and cocaine babies, but that it would all feel very sweet and good-hearted. And maybe there's something good that the movie's a bit more formal, even though that the content is actually outrageous.
I go back and watch it on Christmas Eve each year. It's been a tradition probably the last 3-4 years, and I think it is brilliant in that it does feel like a Christmas movie, and then you've almost got the play on all of the Christmas ideas. Like you've got the snowstorm of cocaine, you've got the Virgin Mary, you've got all sorts in there that you sprinkle throughout, and it does still bring the perfect Christmas feel through. So that worked a charm.
Yeah, like a lot of that stuff was John and Hayden, like Virgin Mary. That was all in that script, and that was so Harold and Kumar voice. I think like White Christmas, I think that was probably their idea, but like the idea to put like that Bing Crosby song under it, like I was like that was the sort of tone that I was going for. Like, okay, can you do like a pretty raunchy, not exactly high class kind of a joke, cocaine, but can you make it beautiful, and can you make it kind of warm and emotional, sentimental almost? Can you do something
very cool with the
disgusting sentimental and trying to always find places that you could overlap that tone felt like kind of clever. Those are my favorite parts of the movie too.
Yeah, it's perfect balance. Is there, when there's a Christmas element to it, is there more or less pressure with that? Because obviously there's a lot of films set around Christmas. It's a big market, but then do you also feel like you've been able to get a lot of ideas in there?
I liked it. I thought that was cool. I think it's always really helpful to have like a holiday or some familiar event kind of just as like a texture, like a gloss to put over your movie.
Yeah.
It sort of holds it all together somehow in a way, or it just gives you immediately the tone, like you're like, okay, so the movie's got all these like kind of dirty, silly jokes, but we're going to give it this gloss of maturity and elegance. It's going to be a handsome movie that's got that spirit. Like immediately, got it. I got the tone, and you could so every shot is all Christmased out, and it really helps to create that tone. I think if it was just it took place on a Wednesday, in June, I think it would feel it would be harder to make it feel tonally unique. So I love that it was Christmas, and I leaned into it really hard. It gave me the tone.
You've got Neil Patrick Harris is in there again, and contrasting the two, I guess his star power is probably a lot more come the third film than it is in the first one. Was there ever any resistance from him, because it really does get pushed up a notch in this one as it does gradually throughout, or does he just fully buy into it?
Fully bought into it. He was amazing. He was amazing. Like, he came in, he was awesome. I think we had him for only a few days, 2 or 3 days, but there was rehearsal period before that because he had to record that song and do the choreography, and I love a musical number, and always for me there's a musical in everything that I make, and this is my first attempt. But yeah, no, he was like, let's go crazy. He loved to subvert his persona. And so he worked really hard on the musical because he's, a showman and incredibly athletic. So he was great about that and all of the silly jokes. He never said no. He wanted to push it farther. He had a lot of great ideas himself. David, his husband, is in the movie also. First time they had worked together, he loved that. He was easy, and I remember that the shoot had been challenging. The 3D was hard, and the personality, it was just hard. I was first time, and all of it, the hazing, it was just tough. But when he showed up, and it was like musical, all this stuff, I remember the crew and me and everything lightened up for a few days, and it was hilarious. It was just absurd, and the musical was good. Yeah, he was a beautiful part of that shoot for sure. Heaven and all this stuff. He was doing the magic trick. Yeah, he was a blast, and he had no issue doing any of that stuff.
He just seems to have a talent to making things like that acceptable as well and funny just to watch. Like, if someone else is playing it, you might second guess it, but with him, you just buy in straight away. Something
about the movie I think is effective, and I think it's not mean-spirited, these movies. No. None of them are mean-spirited, but I think particularly the third one is really not mean-spirited, even though what happens in it is fucked up. Like, in a regular movie, like putting a baby through that kind of physical danger, it would not be so funny. It would be uncomfortable, but somehow here it's delightful. And Neil does some pretty shitty stuff in that movie. I mean, there's an attempted, I mean, and maybe it wouldn't work anymore these days, but it's pretty racy. But something about that, because we know that he's gay and we know that he's poking fun, and because the movie, it just has a good spirited nature to it. And the Christmas helps. And I think for me, I'm always worried. I don't want to be mean to anyone or make fun of anyone or go, I'm happy to be outrageous and subversive and irreverent and all of that, anti-authority. I like that. But I don't need to be mercurial, And I think there's none of that in the movie, which is why we can get away with so much, because it never is coming from a nasty place. And it's a magic trick. Yeah. And I think that Neil obviously makes that stuff work just because of who he is, and that's what's so fun about it.
As well as the familiar cast, you bring in some new faces. Danny Trejo being probably the standout one. How did that go about to get him involved?
That was
in
my
the third
idea.
movie?
I will take full credit for that idea. That character was fully written to the script, but I remember just being like, again, just trying to subvert as many things as you could. The movies need it. It's so fun as an audience. And it was like, Harold's dad's going to be this like super intimidating, Mexican dude. I was like, yeah. And I remember in my pitch that was part of the pitch was, we got to cast Machete and we got to put him in like the most disgusting Christmas sweater. And that should be on the poster. And that was the idea. Using some pop culture references, and obviously that face is amazing. I thought that face would be incredible in 3D, but I just thought it was funny to put a person who is that intense and scary and dangerous, and he is, now he's got his taco shops. He's much more mainstream now, but then a decade ago, I think it was Machete and Desperado. He was still like a character actor, crazy guy. It was less family, and he signed on. We sent him a picture that I photoshopped of him in a terrible Christmas sweater, and I think he got it. And he was very funny on set, and I think he also like loved the idea, like Neil, of kind of inverting his public persona, poking some fun. So he got that joke. He was great.
Thinking of new characters, like people like Todd and Adrian, they're Harold and Kumar's sort of new friends, and the audience could quite easily sort of distance themselves from them at the start because they kind of represent, obviously, those two drifting apart a little bit. But they got their own adventure in the film and are still really likable. How important was it to sort of keep them likable within the film?
Super important. And there's a funny scene. Yeah, the best one is that it's like they each found surrogates for each other, like no, not surrogate. They found mirror versions of themselves.
Yeah.
They found people who were worse than them. That was the idea. It was like Ghost of Christmas Future. So like Harold is a stick in the mud and he finds someone who's like way worse of a stick in the mud. And Kumar is pretty irresponsible and Adrian is like the least responsible. And I love that scene when the car blows up after the car chase, where they all meet each other's like new boyfriends for the first time.
Yeah.
Jealous and it's awkward and that, it's kind of like weirdly romantic, but not. That is very funny. They love doing that also. I like that one. But making them likable was hugely important. Taking some of the pressure off of John and Cal to do all of the comedy was nice. Put some new characters in there. Tom Lennon, when I was a kid, The State was like a holy grail for me. I loved watching that every day after high school. And having him there was great. He was really easy and he was a great improviser and helped those guys. Meaning like he would improvise and those guys would sort of like, follow his lead. And so there was really
bounce off it. Yeah,
really funny stuff that was happening naturally because of him. And he was really helpful to me also. He knew I was a first-time filmmaker. And so when there were things that were dicey, he would kind of like, help me navigate or come up with like a fix if I couldn't, think on my feet in some moment of crisis. Amir, who plays Adrian, was a friend of mine. I had been doing a lot of short films and things for College Humor, which was a website that was doing a lot of comedy stuff in New York. And Jake and Amir was like a funny internet duo, if you know those videos at all. And I thought he was great. I thought he was so funny in real life. I loved those videos. And I thought, if you can just do that character you're doing in those Jake and Amir videos in this movie, maybe like you get famous and I'll have a friend on set that's like my age and is from my world. So this is pretty intimidating. So if you're here, we can just like huddle up in the corner and be like, this is crazy. How did we get here? And I pushed to get him cast. And it was hard for both of us. You know, I think he was intimidated by it. But it was great at work that we would have lunches together and be like, this is fucking nuts. Do they know that we don't know what we're doing? And he was really funny. There was a lot more of him in the movie. I leaned hardcore into that character. I was like, you're so funny. Just make it all up and do whatever you want. I would do 30 takes with him. No one was paying attention. I was like, just try it again. Thinking I was going to have like my Zach Galifianakis moment with Amir. I was like, I'm going to break a comedic genius. And on set, we all felt like that. And then somehow when we were screening the movie, people just wanted to be with Harold and Kumar. No one really, like, they liked the thing with the new friends, but no one wanted to be with them more. No. And so they had great material, but they got sort of like, you know, not diminished, but, you know, balanced with the other guys.
NPH references in there. He says, I'll see you in the fourth one or something like that. Was that in place at the time of the Christmas one, or is it just hoping for the best of that might happen?
It was hoping for I think it was hoping for the best. And it was like those meta breaking the fourth wall jokes. It's just a funny thing.
I was going to say as well, you said obviously it being your first time as a director. How nervous were you when this eventually does get released, your first big film, and obviously there's a load of pressure on it just being Harold and Kumar. So was that a big thing for you? Were you anxious to see how it did, or did you know Harold and Kumar was going to do well?
Good question. How was I think I was excited. I think I was just really excited to be seeing posters and to be going to screenings and to get to do press. You know, because I was like a kid who was like really young, like really like 3, 4. I love movies. I wanted to make movies. I was obsessed with being a director. And this was I directed things before, but I'd never gone on a press tour, you know, or done a Q&A. Like, it was not part of it, or seen my name on a huge poster. And so I think that's what I remember, is all of that stuff felt like they were just like little dreams kind of coming true. And it was just super exciting. And I was proud of the movie. Like, it was a weird thing, because when it came out, everyone was like, hey, you want to do some blah, 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 number 3? I'd be like, no more of those. I don't want to do or stoner fratty bro stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not like that. This movie's not. So I tried to course correct. Everyone thought that I was different than I am. But like, I remember that opening week or weekend going to many, many theaters and watching it. And it was great because the crowd was young and everyone was stoned. And seeing it in 3D, which was you know, now when you watch the movie, you can't see it in 3D. We put so much work into all of the 3D shit.
You can see where the shots are, at least.
You can tell where the shots are, but like when we were doing the editing post-production, it was so much more ideas and make it perfect and wear the glasses, and there was so color correct. There was so much attention. And then people got to see it in 3D for a month. But
because we were below 18 when it came out, so
you couldn't probably go to the cinema
like that.
But for me, when I would go, just that opening few weeks to theaters and watch stoned groups of friends with their glasses on, watching it, like reaching out and whoa, like it was so satisfying. And I knew that it would be a limited experience. Like, that's not going to happen again. So, you know, really milk it.
Yeah, I mean, we both watched it again in the last couple of days in preparation for this, and brought that Christmas feel for us as well as just enjoying a great film.
In September.
I mean, thank you for giving us your time today. I mean, we're not going to release this until Christmas. I've got a hat just to make it look a bit more Christmassy at the time. But thank you for giving us your time, and we really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for being into the movie.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
See you later, guys.
Bye.